Hey class, I'm about to break one of the principles that you're reading about this week. You can tell me which one at some point during Twitter. Anyway, I wrote you this long email, but then after I wrote it, I decided this email is too long. I'm not sure if somebody sent it to me if I would read it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you a chance to listen to it as opposed to reading it. You can do both. I've attached it to the announcement here, so just so that you'll have it. I've gotten the self critiques from everybody. I appreciated people who critiqued their own participation and then gave me suggestions for how I could improve my participation and the class's participation in the coming week. At the beginning of the semester, we decided that since Twitter was new to all of us, we will be open to changes as we move forward. As you should expect, there are in fact changes as we're moving forward. Um, I'm going to make the executive decision right now and that we're going to do tweeting for topic two. There are 4 weeks in topic two. We do our first tweet chat on Monday. And we're going to do it for 4 weeks. And then we're going to stop and do an evaluation. And then as I talk through what I'm going to talk through now, you'll begin to see. We'll revisit this as we look forward to topic two. My goal over the next 4 weeks of topic two is for you to be comfortable tweeting in this class. At some point, I'd like for you to venture out and join some hashtag communities. But since you know everybody in the hashtag AIL604 community, I think you should feel comfortable asking questions during the tweet chats, not only about the content being discussed that week, but also about tweeting itself. If you go back and search the hashtag, you will find that I would say a third of my questions in last week's Twitter chat actually had to do with tweeting. And maybe not that many. But over the course of the class, I have actually tweeted several questions to both students in AIL 604 and students to AIL 601. And the experienced tweeters have always been very good about getting back to me. And since they are experienced tweeters, they're always on Twitter, so it doesn't take very long to get your response. So my thing is that I don't know. I just think you have to jump in. No lurking allowed in the AIL 604 hashtag. Okay. As you venture out into other hashtag communities, lurking is a great way to get started and to learn the protocol. Well, we're developing the protocol as we go in this hashtag community, so you don't have those constraints. You don't have to sit back and figure out how we're doing it because we haven't figured out how we're doing it. I guess we have in a way because we're going to move forward in a particular way that may or may not change as we go from week to week. But based on what happened last week, it seems like a good way for us to move forward. But it's not like we knew this when we started. You'll remember on the first day of class, um, when we talked about tweeting, I was actually hesitant to say we would do it for as long as we're going to do it. And so this is new to me. I've enjoyed it. I don't know if all of you have enjoyed it. At least one person said I want to go back to discussion boards, and maybe we will at some point. But we're going to give this tweeting some time. As I said, I'm also doing this tweeting in AIL 601. And in that class, the students have been asked to join a hashtag community as a part of getting familiar with people in IT. So they're asked to join an EdTech hashtag community. And I found this link of hashtag communities for teachers that you all might find interesting. And so those are hashtags of discussions that are ongoing by people in different education areas. You can follow them and you can lurk. But you can't lurk with us. And just to see what people are doing in your area of interest. But this is not a requirement for you in this class. It's something that you want to get more familiar with Twitter. It's a way of you doing so. Okay, on to the changes that we're going to be making this week. Change one. I think I got this about 4 times. A couple of people actually said that getting up an hour earlier would work for them, but most people said that it would work better if we changed the chat time from from a 24-hour period starting at 1 o'clock in the morning to midnight at night. That if the chat started at noon on Monday and ended at noon on Tuesday. So we're going to try that. If there is some reason that totally screws up your life, please drop me an email and we'll see what we can do. Because theoretically, I could still post the questions. Anyway, you'll see the questions in a minute, so we'll talk about that later. But just let me know. Change 2. In addition to using the class hashtag, hashtag AIL604 on every tweet, and as somebody commented, that's really hard to do. I spent a lot of time in the first treat chat doing direct messaging. I think that's what you call it. And if you don't know what that is, you got to look it up on Twitter. Doing direct messaging with Crystal. And so I knew she was getting my messages. But at some point, I asked somebody a question, and I wondered why they hadn't answered it. And then I found out that I had used the hashtag AIL605 on the tweet instead of AIL604. So the reason they hadn't answered it was probably because they hadn't gotten it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So in addition to using the hashtag hashtag AIL604 on every tweet, we should tweet responses to class tweets using reply. If you don't know what I mean by reply, please take a look at that storyboard tweet replies video that I put on Blackboard. If it seems to me, from the position of a novice person at tweeting, that using reply would make it easier for us to manage our tweets. One comment that I got from several people was that there are so many tweets that it's hard to figure it out, even when you do the hashtag search. I think if we can use the reply feature, it'll make it easier for you to join in the discussions when you come back. Now, if there's a downside to this, somebody needs to let me know. Okay? Change number 3. When I cheat the chat questions for the session, I will also tweet a link to a story file with all the other questions. And once again, this is done from a management person, so that when you come back or you go out, you can get back to all the questions fairly easy and not have to scroll through all the messages. You can bookmark the page so that you have ready access to it during the 24-hour chat period. Once again, if anybody see how that's going to screw something up, do let me know. Change number 4. I won't hijack the chat by asking so many follow-up questions. Nobody actually accused me of hijacking the chat, but I think in one of her comments, Crystal said, I won't spend so much time talking to you, I'll talk to other people. Now, that was not a shot at me at all, but I think that, because I think, how many times? Crystal and I probably did, 5 to 6 messages via direct message. And, but anyway, that was time that she could have been talking to other students. So once again, that I will be more judicious in my question. I think I ask everybody questions, but I don't want to hijack the chat with my questions. I want to make sure that you get to talk to each other as well as talk to me. Change 5. A common comment in the analysis was that you wanted a rubric for this chat participation so you know what the level is. Well, the reason you didn't have a rubric is because I didn't know what to expect. It's sort of like what people say about pornography. I can't tell you what it is, but I know what it is when I see it. I mean, I can't tell you how many messages, but I know that if all you did was answer the question, that wasn't enough. And I think most of us can agree that that's not enough. Because why do we call it a chat if all you're going to do is answer questions, right? A chat has to suggest some level of interaction. Well, I still don't know what that level of interaction needs to be, so I'm going to let you decide. So what I've done is I have created a rubric. But instead of me using the rubric to grade your chat participation, you're going to use the rubric. You will grade your own chat participation using the rubric below, which I'm going to make available. And you have to do it as a quiz in Blackboard so that it'll self-grade. The quiz will open when the chat period ends. We have 4 tweet chats in topic 2, and thus we're going to have 4 of these rubrics or quizzes for 25 points. So you get 25 points for each chat, and you're going to decide how many of those 25 points you should get based on these questions. So right now I have it as a Likert scale from never, rarely, sometimes, often, and always. And there are 5 different statements. And so if your answer is never, you get 1 point for that statement. If your answer is always, you get 5 points for that statement. And it's on you to judge what's the difference between rarely, sometimes, and often. Never and always are sort of clear. But it's up to you to judge rarely, sometimes, and often. So the question number 1, I read the tweets in the chat room. That's the equivalent of lurking. And you can lurk, and you can get a 5. It means that you read all the tweets in the chat room. That's good. Okay? The next one is I responded to the chat questions. Well, you can read them all and then you can respond and you can get up to 5 points here. Now, some people are probably thinking, I'll just give myself 25 on everything. Actually, that's what my husband said when I talked to him about this rubric. He's also an education guy. He was like, what's to stop those students from just giving themselves 25 points? First, I said my students have integrity. And the next thing is, if you do something silly, it's going to become obvious. So if you say, I responded to the chat questions, and when I'm looking through the thing, you didn't respond to any, and you probably shouldn't give yourself a 5. But it's on you. My replies to the tweets of others were thoughtful and meaningful. Now, I say replies here. Since that's plural, it suggests that at least you need to do 2. But it doesn't suggest how many, because I don't say how many replies you need to do. I'm leaving that to you. I enhanced the tweet chat by asking questions or providing resources, comments that stimulated the participation of my peers. Once again, I don't say how many. That's up to you. And then my last question is not along that same Likert scale. It says, which statement best represents your overall participation in the tweet chat this week? I did considerably less than I thought was minimally acceptable. If that's you, give yourself 1 point. I did less than what I thought was minimally acceptable. If that's you, give yourself 2 points. I did what I thought was minimally acceptable, or I worked within my comfort level in using Twitter. We got 2 kinds of people in there. Well, we've got lots of different people in here. But in terms of Twitter use, we have people who are very much novices at doing Twitter, and they are just overwhelmed at the thought of it. And we have other people who tweet when they're asleep and just pick up their phone in the middle of the night and get in the bed and start, tweeting. And so I wanted something to capture sort of where you were and what your growth was with Twitter. And this is where I ended up. So I did what I thought was minimally acceptable, or I worked within my comfort level in using Twitter. That's 3 points. I did more than what I thought was minimally acceptable, or I stretched myself a little beyond my comfort level in using Twitter. I don't think you get comfortable doing this unless you do it. And so what I'm trying to do here is to encourage you to do it. And in order to get the whole 5 points, I did considerably more than what I thought was minimally acceptable, or I stretched myself considerably beyond my comfort level in using Twitter. So I think that these are fairly easy statements for you to do a self-assessment. And so after the tweet is over, after the time period is over, the quiz will become available for you to evaluate your participation. And I'll probably leave it available. The tweet will end on, the chat will end on Tuesday at noon. And so I'll probably leave it open till that Wednesday night at midnight in terms for you to be able to rate yourself. Just a couple of notes. In terms of the chat discussion, it's perfectly acceptable for you to extend the chat to topics beyond my tweeted questions. Note 2, and this is very important, use the 140 character limit to your benefit. And depending on what system you use to do the reply, using reply may actually take away some of your characters. You are not asked to write an essay. You are asked to give a short, thoughtful response. So if you find yourself about to write an essay, you probably need to say to yourself, why am I writing an essay? This is Twitter. Let me think about other ways that I can answer this question. What I found myself doing is I'll write out what I think I'm normally going to say, and then I just start deleting stuff. I found that I include a lot of stuff like I think and da-da-da-da. Just, to me, they're empty words. So if we get rid of the empty words, I think you'll find out that you can make your point in a lot fewer words. And as you'll notice, some of your peers use multiple tweets to do it. And some people have even created a graphic and put the text on the graphic much the same way that I do the questions. Now, all of my questions are under 140 characters. I put them on the graphic so that they're easier to read and for you to find in the tweet stream. So I don't want you to just use those images to allow you to write an essay. You can use it if you're just going to make the text bigger or for some other reason. I think at one point in the last chat, Sloan used a video. I thought that was fascinating because I didn't even know you could do a video in a tweet stream. So you're welcome to do other things, but I don't want you to do those other things as a way of allowing you to write an essay. You see what I'm saying? You can point your peers to another resource. That kind of thing is perfectly valid. But don't feel that you have to impress me by writing an essay, because I'm telling you, I very much like reading short, thoughtful responses. And number 3, the rubric suggests that you need to read all the tweets in the chat stream and respond to the tweeted questions to get full points for those items. The quality of tweet replies is specified, but not a specific number. That's up to you. Change number 6. You're also doing a Google Doc. Every week, people are assigned chapters. This week, they were chapters 4 to 7. And I've already looked in the Google Doc, and you've done a great job with those this week. And so I'm going to let you grade your own work in that as well. And I'm going to use this same rubric quiz in Blackboard Learn. Over the course of topic 2, everybody will have 2 chapters to do, which means you'll be grading yourself on 2 pages. And it's a Likert scale again, from strongly disagree to strongly agree. My document includes the elements required in the assignment. Well, in the assignment, there's a list of things that are supposed to be in your document. If in fact you have all of them, you can strongly agree. If you don't have all of them, you probably shouldn't strongly agree. And the level to which you don't have them puts you somewhere on this spectrum of strongly disagree to agree. My document addresses each of the principles in my assigned chapter. Well, that's pretty easy. You strongly agree if it does. Well, if it doesn't, you either somewhere between strongly disagree and agree. The examples I provided contribute to understanding of the principle. Now, everybody ought to get a 5 on this one, but maybe yours doesn't. Maybe you forgot to include an example, so you can't say strongly agree. The technology tools resources that I provided can help multimedia developers comply with the associated principle. Well, that should be a strongly agree for everybody too, unless you just don't do it or you did it late, and instead of doing something related to multimedia, you have I don't know, picture of your children going swimming. I don't know, that's just a bad joke, so we'll move on from that. And then I got to which statement. Which statement best captures your chapter document? The document reflects considerably less than what was required. The document reflects less than what was required. The document meets the assignment requirement. The document exceeds the assignment requirement. The document greatly exceeds the assignment requirement. Note 1. One way that you might exceed or greatly exceed the assignment requirements would be to update your document with examples and resources uncovered during the chat. Your document is posted on Thursday night of the discussion week. And the discussion week is not over until Wednesday of the following week. The Twitter chat will be held on Monday noon to Tuesday noon. So you have from Tuesday noon to Wednesday midnight to update your document if you want to. Actually, you can update it anytime. But, so that's what I'm thinking about with this notion of exceeds or greatly exceeds. And I'm doing this exceeds or greatly exceed because I want us to get out of that mode of thinking what is minimally required. I mean, you only lose 2 points if you choose to stick with assignment requirement. It's only 2 points that still puts you in A territory. These are the only 2 points you leave. But you don't get the whole 25 points unless you show that you're going beyond what was required. Now, since I am giving you this after the people for chapters 4 to 7 have posted their Google Docs, I was going to give them a pass for this week. But I looked at them and they don't need a pass. A couple of them have already exceeded what I asked them to do, and everybody did a very good job. So, and there's still time if they want to update the document based on the Twitter chat on Monday. It's just up to you. I don't think they need to get a pass on this at all, because, and then maybe this means is that everybody who does the work is going to automatically go beyond. But I saw some things in a couple of those documents that immediately jumped off to me as, boy, I didn't ask for that, but I sure am glad that they included it. And that's the kind of thing I'm looking for you to do. I want you to be creative in how you exceed or greatly exceed the requirement. I think in one case, somebody gave 2 examples instead of giving 1 example. In another case, somebody provided a position or a reaction that I didn't ask for. And so that's extra. And that's just great. I mean, that shows that you are engaged and that you're going beyond doing what's minimally asked for. And a lot of times, that's why I don't give, people say, well, you need to give me a better rubric. Well, a lot of times, that's why I don't give a rubric. I want to see what you're going to do when left to some freedom of your own. And I know that that becomes sort of difficult sometimes for students because you're like, well, in some ways you give me freedom and in some ways you don't. So sometimes you feel like you have a moving target. But I think that you're going to find that this is great. And if you haven't looked at the Google Docs for chapters 4 to 7, I recommend that you do so. I think those will definitely help during our conversations in the chat. Change number 7. And now this is the one that I think is going to make some of you upset, but I think some of you are going to be okay with it. I have added an end of topic 2 essay quiz worth 100 points. After we complete the tweet chat for the last chapters of this topic, and I think that that's Tuesday noon on October 3rd, I will assign an essay quiz of 6 to 10 questions. You will have at least 24 hours to complete the quiz. I would like for the quiz to be completed. I think I repeated some stuff there, so I'll fix it before I post that. I like for the quiz to start on Tuesday at noon when the chat ends and to continue until midnight Wednesday night on October the 4th. So if that causes anybody any hardship, just let me know, and we will see what we can do to work around it. A couple other things. You are asked not to collaborate on the quiz. Well, why? Because we did our collaborating in the chat. You are asked not to collaborate on the quiz. The quiz questions will be derived from the questions discussed during the tweet chats, so there will be no surprises. Given that your tweets will be brief, by definition, tweets are short, this essay quiz will allow you to more fully express your ideas and positions. At least one question will be about your Twitter experience. And I'll also ask you to compare tweet chats with discussions on the discussion board, and with answering essay questions on a quiz. So those are the 3 things that I'm going to ask you to juxtapose in this quiz at some way. So the questions on the quiz are going to come from the questions that we discussed during the tweet chats, or some variation of those questions. Anyway, it won't be anything that you haven't seen before. It will not be new by definition. So, like anyway, we'll show you the questions next. So that's sort of where we are on there. And then the tweet questions. Now I'm going to ask similar questions during each week of topic 2. So for the first week, the questions are going to be, which principles in chapters 4 to 7 immediately resonated with you as valid even before you read the research? And then I say why and pick 1 or 2. And then I say, if you have more than one, don't feel you got to squeeze it all in one tweet. You can always have more than one tweet. That's up to you. But just try to be reasonable as we think about what it means to tweet. And some of this we'll have to just learn as we go forward. And if you have 2, for me, it's easier to read if, like what you might say, well, I got 2 and everything I want to say about them. It'll be better if I just create a document and then do a screenshot of that document. I think that's the wrong approach, because it's too much text for me to read at one time. I think it's easier if you break it up. Even if you did the image, if you broke it up for one question, if you had 2, and then the next question. The idea in tweeting is that we aren't sitting here to read an essay unless you're pointing me to something else somewhere else. Anyway, that's just me. Now this note, okay. And I'm saying pick 1 or 2. It's up to you. If you pick more than 1 or 2, that's how you can say you went beyond the requirements if you want to. Which principles in chapter 4 to 7 required you to read the research before you were convinced they were valid? Were you convinced? In some cases, you may not have been. And I said pick 1 or 2 and tell us about it. And this was one of the things that I saw in somebody's response in the Google Doc. They actually talked about one that did not convince them. And every time I use this book, it always comes up that some things they're intuitive, other things are not intuitive. And then we also discuss how, if it's a principle, does it mean that I have to follow it always? Are there exceptions to those principles? But we'll talk more about those things as we move forward. Which principles in chapters 4 to 7 have you seen violated most? Provide URLs of principal violations if you have them. And then why do you think these are the ones that are most often violated? And then I put a note here. You can also post URLs that show compliance with one or more principles. And all these notes that I'm telling you about as we walk through this, these notes are not going to be on the slide with the questions. So if you haven't read the the attachment, or listened to the video, you might not know this. We'll see how that goes. Number 4, describe 1 or 2 development tools applications that you can use to help you apply with the principles in chapters 4 to 7. Provide URLs if you have them. If you can't think of any, you can talk about some that the chapter authors provided in the Google Doc. Because in the Google Doc, everybody was asked to list a technology tool or resource that could help them comply with this principle. So if you can't think of any right offhand, if you look in those document, you may be able to see some and try some out and then talk about those. Once again, if you got more than one, don't feel compelled to put them all in one tweet. How should or will the principles that you've looked at in chapters 4 to 7 influence? I know it looks like the word influence, so I need to fix that. Influence you as you design and develop your online module for this class. You know, we're looking at all these principles. What do they mean? Why are we looking at them? How can you use them? How do you think you will use them? And then the last one is, what questions did chapters 4 to 7 raise for you? If you have any questions, just put them here and when we'll talk about them. So that's sort of where we are. Um, that's it. Looks like a lot of change, but I don't think it is. I mean, everybody wanted the rubrics and we needed them, so I didn't even have to put that under change. But thanks for being willing to embrace change. That's it for now. Let me know if you have questions. As always, I'm Dr. Benson. So I hope you're having a good Sunday. I'm watching the Pittsburgh Steelers beat up on the Cleveland Browns. And I'm a Cleveland fan. I always like the underdog. So now that I've written this, maybe I'll go back and Cleveland will have another touchdown. So have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.